So this is the walkthrough part now that I'm just going to start applying some of the techniques that we've already talked about. So you guys can follow along or just try to work through it yourself. But I think some people will find it beneficial. If you find that you want to watch part of these walkthrough videos and then just do it yourself as well to try to problem solve it yourself, that's fine too. But either way, it's totally fine. But I just want to do a little bit of a walkthrough, kind of how I did with the keying, to sort of go through and do the process. So first things first, I need to figure out what areas are going to be the biggest problems. So if I just watch our footage after the pre-multiply, we can see without any edge corrections, edge extends or despill, that's what we're getting. So down here, I'm seeing that we could use our traditional despill techniques on the green. And we could use a traditional despill down here and probably just darken the edges. Same for here, we could probably just darken this. Rather than up here, it's going to be different because it's going to be hard to kind of darken these really bright values. This is where I would probably use an edge extend. So in terms of where we're going to put that in the script, I'll probably put my despills here just because, I don't know, I like to put them here so we don't have this giant empty space in our script. So we can just put color corrections and stuff like that here. We can put our edge extends here. And the reason the edge extends need to come a little bit later is because the edge extends rely on having our alpha. So if you remember, if we look at AH edge push, we plug it in, and we plug this in, you know, it's pushing the edge, but if we plug it in before the alpha is copied in, you know, it doesn't have an alpha to look at. So it needs that alpha mat to be able to tell where the edge is and then be able to do that type of work. So edge extends, usually I'm doing them later, and then despill corrections, I'm usually doing them a little bit earlier. And it's not to say that doesn't rule, that you have to do despills up here. You know, sometimes you want to do a color correction that we actually need the alpha. You know, we need this alpha that we created, for example. Like if we want to do an edge mat and correct on the edge. So you could do those edge mat corrections here and grab from the alpha. So you could do it that way as well. So you could put all your despill here and edge corrections here if you wanted, is what I'm trying to say. But just for organization's sake, I like to have something going on here. And because it doesn't make much of a difference, that's just a preference. So anyways, I'm going to start with I guess we could actually start with the easier areas, which is like down here in terms of like just despilling the traditional way. So I'll just go up here with a key light and start to do that. So let's plug in a key light and see if we can just start to get rid of some of that green. So if I do that, we can see that knocks out the green by just putting a 1 in there, and then I can start to do a little bit of, you know, negative values to see if we can just play around with the color and get something a little bit closer. I don't want to make it super saturated like that, so I'm using just the up and down arrow keys to get that effect. And sometimes the screen balance helps a little bit to sort of shove that around. Also, maybe just a Despill Madness might work really well there. Let's just check it out. Let's try Despill Madness and just see if we can. We really just want a navy sort of color there. So if we can play around with the, I'll turn off Restore Luminance because we don't want to keep the background. So Despill Madness might be pretty good because we don't want to keep that brightness because our background is much darker. And then we can just contaminate a little bit with some blue. So it looks like Despill Madness is working pretty well in this spot. So we're getting something like that. And it's okay to have a little bit of orange on the edge because that's actually some light that's hitting our character. This might be too bright for our final composite, but that might be an edge correction that we need to do later on. So I think, and that's too saturated over here. So we'll need to do a couple of key mixing. So let's try this for this area. So I'll just do a key mix on the edge. I'm not going to even create, well, we'll see. I don't think I'm going to create a core despill. I'm just going to do edge despills and mix them onto different areas. So I'm not going to do like a core despill and edge despill. I'm just going to do each edge, I'll just despill it differently and then mix it basically like that. So we'll go here, mix this on. And one thing we want to make sure is, as well as our resize is happening down here. So anything before that, we're still working in 4K. So if you remember, this is 4K, and that means we need to put our 4K reformat on our roto. So if I disable and enable that, it's kind of fixing some weird stuff that was happening there. So that's fine, and I'll just draw it all the way up, and it's probably not going to work for this area, but we'll just try it anyway and just see what that looks like. So that's a good result. And remember, if you decide to put this, for example, if you are doing a despill and you're doing it here, let's say you just decided to put it here in the script, this right now would be a mistake, because I'm just going to disable this for a moment. If you copy the alpha in and you have our picture and then we do our despill, it looks fine, but you've forgotten to check this, which is it's changing our alpha. So actually it's not doing much in this case, but you got to be careful, because if you use a key light in this case, let's just use a key light and do a despill. So if I just use a key light, and I was doing some kind of despill here and I mix it, you see it's changing our alpha. So you need to make sure, if you're doing some despilling and stuff after you've copied in your alpha, you need to always make sure that this is set to RGB only. You don't want to start replacing that really nice alpha that we spent a lot of time creating by doing a bunch of stuff down here. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not putting it here in the script, so it doesn't matter, but we might do some stuff here, and you got to always make sure to only replace the RGB, don't replace the alpha. Unless you're doing that specific key light mixing technique I taught in an earlier lesson. That's the only exception, really. So here it doesn't matter, because we're copying a new alpha anyways, so it doesn't matter. So if we look at the end result, look at the pre-multiply, and look at this over our background, it's looking pretty good. I mean, we got this like kind of orange edge that we need to sort of fix. I would say down here it's a little bit closer, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's like perfect yet. So we might need to do some color corrections. And it's doing an okay job for this type of despill as well. So I'm going to create a despill matte from this and just go through our process that we did in our other projects. So just to give myself some ability to color correct that a little bit easier. So you can use a despill matte, or you can use the alpha to create an edge matte to color correct that area. So it's kind of doing the same thing. So I'll show you both ways as we continue through this. So I can go here, say merge minus. So we're getting the difference between the two. We can just put a saturation to 0 just so we can see as a black and white image. You don't need to do that, but it's just, I like to do it just to see what I'm doing. And then I can put that into the alpha channel. So using an expression or a shuffle node, either way, you could do a shuffle and take one of the color channels and just put it into the alpha channel like that. So now we have an alpha that we can use to color correct. So if you plug that into the shuffle, we can use that alpha to adjust. The expression is the same exact thing. You can just press, you can type in the alpha, the last box here, you can just put R, G, or B, and it will take the value from that specific channel and put it into the alpha. So it's doing the same thing as this, but I find it a little bit faster. So I just press R, and if I look at that, it takes the red channel and puts it into the alpha channel, so we can use that easily in the grade. Alternatively, you can actually just use these in the grade. You can actually switch it to say which channel to color correct with, but I don't like to do that. I like to just keep everything in the alpha, just because I can keep track of it easily. So I'm going to go here and start to just remove a little bit of the orange and maybe just something like that. And let's just take a look at the end comp. Sometimes it's easier to look at the end comp while you're doing things. So you could just go here and play around. So I don't want that orange in here, and that's a lot of that is coming from the light of this this background, because it's sort of despilling like that. So we might need to do 2 despills, like one down here and one up here. So I'm just going to create another one and sort of start our little despill tree. So it's kind of the way I do this. plug one in, go down, mix it in. Plug one in, go down, mix it in. And we can sort of, I don't know, just try to get rid of some of that orange. We can also do hue correct here. That might help us out. So we can really just take the orange and just go to the red suppress and start to take some of the red out, and then take some of the green out of that area as well. So this is where the hue correct might help us out a little bit. And maybe we could try to just go to the actual green channel and just also pull it down. Maybe go to the red channel, pull it down. And that's starting to get us closer. And maybe we want to soft fall off there. We don't want to break the image, so here it's being a little weird. So we need to make sure that we're not breaking our image in terms of the colors that we're manipulating. Usually that's because of the fall off. I think I did some correction here that seems to have done that. Let's see, go to the red suppress. So it looks like this one in particular is a little bit too much of a, yeah, it's just that these are falling off too quickly, so we get these weird edges. So I'm just trying to see specifically which channel is causing that. It looks like this one. So another way to do this, maybe not to hue correct, we could just go in here and try to like take out some red, take out some green, take out more red. And I'm not looking at this, I'm only looking at the edge now. So I just want to get sort of that blue color. And we'll mix that in on the, using the Despill matte. So we already created a Despill matte here. So I'm just going to key mix this result through that matte. And let's see. So there's our result. Here's our key. We need to adjust our key a little bit, so we can go here, switch it to RGBA, and sort of start to push the white point so that the alpha is a little bit stronger. And then we start to get something like this. So you see it's starting to push more of that color in. And we'll go to the end result again and just check that out. So let's see. It's starting to look a little better. Again, you got to be careful where we're mixing this thing because it's going a little bit too far. It's really just the orange area that this one's going to be in. So we need to basically take this and just isolate it to the orange area. So again, we'll do a roto, mask this Despill matte. Whoops, switch this to mask. And make sure we have our thing here. And I'm going a little bit faster, but that's because this is the walkthrough portion. So, you know, in order to keep this class relatively not extremely long, and this is not a new process, so this is just working through. You see how I'm problem solving. You see how I'm approaching things. You know, I have a Despill matte. I'm making it harder, brighter, so we can actually, you know, when the values are closer to 1, they affect the color grade more. So, and then I'm just taking that result, and I'm going to mix it just on this orange portion. So you see how we're affecting this area a little bit differently. And it's still not strong enough, so we need to take that alpha and push it up more. You got to be careful. You see it's breaking a little bit on the inside, so that might not be the best. We might need to make sure we protect our image on the center here. What we can also do is blur our alpha a little bit. So you can just kind of blur it. Because you see we're getting this kind of crunchiness. But if we just blur that, it's going to be fine. So basically, to recap, we have this Despill, we we have this Despill. And I've just mixed the strong Despill over on this area. And just expand it. Something like that. Should work. So maybe we'll go in, you know, we could use our alpha that we created, like the really nice matte we created, and just make sure that it doesn't, like we don't want the color correction happening to this thing, because we're starting to break the colors of it a little bit. Although it actually might look good, so we might just leave it. So we're kind of getting rid of some of those weird neutral tones, which, you know, depending on the final comp, we'll see. Let's just see the final result again. So that's starting to get better. We might need to, if we gamma up, we can check it a little bit closer, or gain up. This is gain. So if I just compare before and after, it's starting to get rid of that. And we're going to need to do some color corrections on this whole portion of the plate in terms of, like, it's too bright relative to the background. Like, we do have this building that's casting light, but this whole area just doesn't feel integrated. So some of this is not just Despill, it's actually comp work that we need to do. So that's also something to keep in mind. So I'm going to take this rotoshape and animate it across our frames. So to make sure that that kind of sticks, we'll go here and just make sure that you know, we're getting that along the whole thing. Same for the roto above. You know, we want to make sure that those kind of go through. So I'm going to feather them as well, and then we'll just use it for this area up here. This area probably we're going to have to do something different as well, but we'll see. And then we'll just go to the last frame and do the same thing. Just make sure that it's always sticking. And for this one, just make sure that it's sticking as well, because we really don't want that really orange light coming through. Although we do have, coincidentally, you know, we have this orange on this sleeve here, and we could despill it orange, but does that look good over the final comp? I'm not so certain that that's something we're going to want, is that really bright orange line. So that's going to be something we might just color correct down, because this area is too bright and this area just draws attention. You know, if we have this really dark lake behind the composite with the image, it's just not pleasant to have a really sharp edge like this. So this is sort of, I guess, a lesson with edges, is you don't want to have stuff like this. So I'll probably, I think in one of the integration lessons, I'm going to talk about fixing stuff like that. So we're not going to do that in this lesson because we're doing despilling. But as a compositing theory kind of thing, that's something we don't want. So I'll cover that later on in the integration and color correction stuff. So, okay, that's pretty cool. We have that working. And we could label these just to make them a bit more clear as well. So this is like, we'll say this one's the orange light Despill. And maybe we'll just make it kind of orange just so we know exactly. Let's say orange light Despill. And this one is the, let it save here. And my nuke actually crashed, but we're back here. And yeah, so I've just labeled these two Despills that we've got. And so that's a good start that we've made here. So let's just see as well here. For example, this, still got to be careful with this particular grade. Looks like I graded it up a little bit, but I didn't mask. Let's just see. Oh yeah, actually it should be okay. But you can see that a little bit of in the Despill mat, we have some parts of the alpha in there. So we could go here with a grade and just sort of take a black point and just kind of darken it a little bit. so we don't affect too much of that part of the image. So that's where you could create a core matte and kind of mix it back in, just in case you're worried about messing up your despill. Like some of these areas, we could mix back in the original picture just through our alpha here. So, for example, I'll just do it here to show. So I could just put a key mix on the bottom here and say for the A input, well, you would just put it to the image before. So we go back up here. And then we just use the alpha as the mask. So we get like a really clean alpha. But you might need to erode it a little bit as well. So you would just take the alpha here, we kind of erode it in, and then we could switch it to like a box, or sorry, switch from box to Gaussian. You see I do this quite frequently. I do a box one, and then I do the second one, I do it as a Gaussian. So we get like a better way to control it. And so all that's doing is just protecting the inside here. So this area, all the inside, is being kept, and we're not affecting it at all with color corrections. So this little technique here of protecting the center, we got to be careful with it still, because we might need to, for the really motion blurred areas, we don't want to necessarily keep the colors, because once we have serious problems like these semi-transparent edges, this mixing back of the original picture might mix back too much of it. So just, yeah, I'm just going to keep this disabled for now, but if we need to sort of isolate different areas to protect them, that's how you would do it. So I'll just label this as core despill maintain image. And then we can just sort of make it a less annoying color and sort of less apparent size there. Oops, 33 or something. And so I'm going to keep it disabled for now, because I want to sort of work through the different areas before we start worrying about just making sure that the center is protected. So the different area we can do as a last part of our despill, we could try to do this side over here. And it looks sort of similar to this, so maybe one of these despills might actually work. So I'm going to go back up to here and just take this rotoscope and see maybe if I could just do the quick way, see if that works. And it looks pretty good. That looks like a pretty decent despill off the bat. So we'll just kind of use that one that we already did and just sort of mix it in on this side. To me, it looks a little bit too saturated down here for sure. So we'll just need to adjust the bottom half with the saturation node. But I'm just going to quickly go through and sort of do something like that. So obviously for the edges that are over here, we're going to have to do something totally different for the despill, probably the edge extend. And we're going to require an alpha for that as well. So that area all will be down here, just because we can easily pull from our alpha stream. So that's cool. That's working out. Let's just see. And, you know, I'll do a saturation node. I don't want to make this too messy here, but it's a little bit messy here, but I think it'll be all right. But try not to do too much in one little area, because it can be hard to start to understand what's going on. So this is a little bit confusing here, but all it is a despill madness plugged into a saturation node, plugged into a key mix. It's just because this is crossing here with our little despill mat that this starts to look a little bit messy. So I'll just take the saturation of this area down a bit. So we have it, and we'll just reduce. And that's one thing. We don't want to reduce the saturation over our plate. So right now this roto is actually desaturating over our guy. So again, that's why we could sort of restore the original image back at the end here. so we can kind of we don't want to desaturate the original image. You know, we don't want to lose certain details. So that's what this is kind of doing. It's sort of just bringing those things back. So that's something you can notice that beginners do as well a lot. They'll, you know, do a color correction, but it's going too far. You know, it's affecting too much of our footage. So I'm going to reduce this even more and potentially even darken it. So put another grade here and just darken. And I'm using this restoring image, so I'm not worried about darkening over the image now. So that's why that's kind of helping. So in this case, I guess it was fine to leave it on. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. Let's take a look at the result. So if I zoom into this area, I'm not worrying at all about grain right now. And our black point, in terms of like our composite, is still off a bit. Like we're gonna need to, we might want to lift our background a little bit. It's pretty crunchy in terms of like it's really, really contrasty. So our composite doesn't look real at all right now. We have really, really lifted and like really dark, and the blues or the black point of this image is like really saturated. Well, I guess it's less saturated here, but just over here is really, really saturated comparatively. So you can see that this doesn't feel natural yet, but we're not worried about the integration. We're just worried about getting the edges fixed first. So let's see. So for just enable, disable. So that's what we've done. We've gone from this to this. And so we still have the white halo around this little lamp thing, and we're going to start taking care of that in the next lesson. But I think that's a good stop for this video. So we've used our traditional techniques that we learned in the last project, and now we're going to start to use a little bit of the edge detects and the edge extends. So I'll save it here and we'll move on.